Antes de conocernos en Nueva York, en 1968 o 9, con el asunto de la que terminó siendo la Contrabienal, tú habías ya expuesto en México, ya tenías una carrera de grabadora, que fuiste estudiante de Guillermo Silva
Sí,
María, ¿no?
exacto, sí, sí.
Y esas obras no sé dónde quedaron, pero eran también buenísimas y expusiste en, ¿qué era? La Galería Pecanins, ¿verdad?
No, la Galería Proteo.
Ah, la de Proteo, mejor aún. Sí, que era
Sí,
una galería de vanguardia. Y
sí.
digamos, ese pasado de grabadora, como que te ha llevado a través de todas tus diferentes fases del tipo de cosas que haces y, y me interesa mucho que expandes un poco, que nos expliques un poco. Ah, creo que debemos hablar en inglés, ¿verdad?
Sí, creo que sí, ¿no? No, hay que preguntar.
Bueno, en inglés te repito. Before we met,
Todavía no son las 5. ¿No es que empieza a las 5? Todavía no empezamos.
¿ya abrieron?
No, no, todavía no.
Ah, bueno,
A-
qué caray.
Alguna de las chicas,
Bueno, que nos indiquen cuándo está empezando, ¿no?
sí, porque me imagino que habrá una presentación. ¿Cómo es?
Que puede dar una introducción.
Tiene
No
que ser
sé qué es lo que...
Podemos empezar a las 5 si quieren.
a las 5. Entonces, ¿cómo
Sí,
empezamos?
nos salimos.
Ah, faltan 3 minutos.
Sí, nos salimos.
Liliana, faltan 3 minutos.
Pero ¿alguien hace introducción o empezamos a hablar?
Dice que si ya hay gente, si quieres de una vez la introducción y pueden empezar. Bueno, vuelvo a repetir y ahora en inglés.
Pero no, tenemos que a las 5 porque hay gente que a las 5 va a poner, ¿no?
Yo creo que sí, pero pues me dijo que podíamos empezar, no sé. Yo preferiría mejor a las 5.
Claro. Then we do it in English for everybody, ¿no?
Yeah, we have to.
Yes.
No nos queda de otra.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So, qué bueno, bueno. Yeah.
Bueno, bueno.
Sí. Somebody's going to make the presentation or just start at 5?
I think that I'm supposed to. So far, I start talking
Right.
and asking questions.
Exactly. Yeah, because I see that nobody is monitoring. We are monitoring.
Well, I see a message that ya estamos.
Ya estamos. So, bueno.
I am really happy to be here this afternoon with Liliana Porter. It's a privilege to be able to have a conversation virtually since we are many, many miles apart.
Yeah.
And part of her work has to do with space and time. So we are the living proof of acting that out. I was remembering that before I met Liliana in 68 or 69 in New York City, at the meetings of the Museo Latinoamericano that turned out into MICLA and the Contrabienal, she already had, or rather you already had a career. You went from Argentina, you went to Mexico,
right,
and you studied with that great engraver, the great printmaker who's been the teacher of so many brilliant artists, Guillermo Silva Santamaria, I think in La Ciudadela, ¿verdad?
right.
And And not only that, you already started to have a show there. And I mean, you were like a baby. You were like a baby. I don't know how old you were, but I mean, it was really before anything else that happened later in your life that made you who you are today. But it left an indelible, I think it left an indelible print on your career, the printmaking start in Mexico City. And I'd like you to expand a little on that, how you see, where that printmaking led you, like how it sort of evolved into doing everything else that we know about your work at this point, which is a huge amount of body of work.
Well, I arrived in Mexico in 58. I was 16 years old, and I went to La Iberoamericana in La Ciudadela, and I studied printmaking with Guillermo Silva Santamaria, and also Matias Geritz was teaching at Iberoamericana, so he was also a great guide, and so I started, with printmaking, and actually my first exhibition was in Mexico City, when in La Galería Proteo, when I was 17 years old, and they were not only prints, but also I was making oil paint time. Yeah.
In Mexico, printmaking was a really strong ingredient of the art world, especially at that time. From the Taller de la Gráfica Popular until today, actually.
Yes.
It's like there's not one artist who hasn't done print. So it was logical that you've started in that way,
Yeah. Yes.
But so that the printmaking over the years, over your career, how do you see that in relationship to the rest of the work?
What happened is then in 64, I came to New York, and here is when we started the New York Graphic Workshop with Luis Guillermo Castillo, and we were very young, but what we were doing is to question what is that noise? We were questioning what work we were doing, and more conceptually, what was our theme, let's say, So, and with the whole idea of being aware that we should start from the idea and not the technique. And so, and printmaking was, to me, at that moment, very important, because first we were, very idealistic, very social, conscious, political, and the idea that the works were multiple were, for us, an ingredient that was important, not that we weren't doing one single object, and it was more, let's say, democratic, And that led to other things, because it was also the time of the dematerialization of art, when we didn't want to make objects, but more working ideas. So they were all the exhibitions posted by mail, things that were supposed not to be more disposable, or to include more the participation of the viewer.
Yeah, and I think that whole political aspect in the very beginning was sort of very prominent when you, especially when you were a part of the group of the MICLA and the...
we're working to...
I mean, all of us, after all, we're all supporters of la Revolución Cubana, el Che Guevara, and all of that. I remember several anecdotes of that period, but one of the most important ones was when we were doing the Contrabienal and finally the MICLA. I remember that you asked me, since I wasn't a visual artist, I was the only one that wasn't a visual artist, to create the biographies of these hypothetical artists that were for prints that were being done in your studio in Locust Valley, and that we then sold in order to buy the printer, ¿cómo se llama? Whatever that, that machine was that we had,
Right.
which we used, that we used to make the book with. It was a very primitive one, no? What was it exactly that we bought?
You mean the print where we made counter Contrabienal against the Biennale of Brazil was a offset machine. Was a,
Yeah, it was really very primitive, and the look of the book has that look too. But you were at that point, really instrumental in getting my mind around, wrapping my head around the idea of what certain Latin American artists could be doing or might be doing. And we'd sit around at your breakfast table and you'd say, well, there's this woman in Panama and she does these very colorful and very sort of like tropical scenarios. And I'm going to do the print and you make a career for her in a bio. So there was this hypothetical, creating these different scenarios, which in a sense, when you look at the later work with all of these little figurines and so forth, it's like creating a whole other world that in a certain sense is incongruent and humorous, but started out being politically motivated. And that's what's like so fascinating, is to see how you moved from that whole political involvement into telling these stories that are completely nuts. I mean, there's so much humor in them. I mean, right now we're looking at an image of a grouping of some of your hundreds of little toys and figurines. And well, how big are each one of these? They're so minute, like about.
In general, my photographs, the photographs, the size of the object are similar to the ones reality, are not there, and or smaller. No, so like in the middle you see a postcard, so that gives you the size of all the rest. And I am always interested in that combination when the real space, the virtual space, or different times collide. In this case, the figurines are totally coming from different origins, different times, different physicality, and I like this idea of putting them together. They become a family, no matter from what type they are, or if they are expensive or mass production. What they are in the same, like a family.
Yeah, I mean, what's that squirrel nutcracker doing in the middle of, next to, a diva above him and then a Spanish flamenco dancer? I mean, they don't seem to belong together and be part of a family. They're just brought together by you. And then they're separated and acting out in these other bigger canvases, surrounded by this empty space.
Yeah, like sometimes to make dialogues between the similar characters.
There's one in particular. Yeah, for instance, this one. You have this like Native American standing next to an eagle that you found in some whatever toy shop or some secondhand flea market or something, and they're surrounded by this immense space. They're no more than like 5 centimeters each, right?
Yeah, they are very, very small. And this is a photograph. In general, the space where things happen in work are either monochromatic or white. And the idea is to make them take away all context. So they are in a space that has no time or no reference to any geographical place or nothing. So to me it's important to make them intemporal, because also they come themselves from different times and physicality and everything, but they suddenly are together and they are simultaneous.
And by you putting them there, they might have a dialogue of sorts. that we are, as viewers, can sort of imagine what that dialogue would be like, especially given the story of indigenous Native Americans and the importance of the eagle.
Right.
Now, this is, of course, this image that we're looking at right now is, of course, a very direct sort of connection to
Magritte.
the many surreal aspects in your work. I mean, a miniature portrait of Magritte on a little stool and a chair next to it. You wonder, is Magritte going to teach us something, or is he just referencing his world?
For instance, in this case, that postcard, that painting of Magritte, I think it's called something like sitting men, or and obviously he's not sitting. So I sort of corrected the situation and put the postcard on top of a chair. So both propositions are totally absurd. But in Madrid, I think is a proto-conceptual, especially when he works with words and also the relationship with his titles and the image. I love his work.
Yeah, right. And so here
we see a painting.
I can't remember what's on top of that splash of blackness.
It's a small metal figurine with a bucket that's throwing all this black gooey paint that obviously is the amount of paint is superior to the possibility of that bucket to hold. So I like also that combination between the impossibility of the incongruence.
But you definitely give all of them a task. They all have to do something at some point, and something really impossible in real life. And that makes it very humorous. You wonder, like, why is he splashing all that black there? Why not in another part of the world? No,
because I think all the situations, I call them, are open to different metaphors, and also they could be at the same time very dramatic and very funny. I think that is something also that interests me, the combination of the opposite perception.
Yeah, another aspect that I really like is this kind of like
this is also a background. It's called that I call I think martyr, something like that. No, yeah, I think so. But the thing is that the cheese, and the cheese is
what is that? What is that? Yeah, well, that's a piece of cheese, right?
Of cheese that is called Juana de Arco, Joan of Arc.
Yeah, Joan of Arc in a piece of brie.
And I think the three images are like, first you have Joan of Arc, the real person who died in the fire, and suddenly you have cheese that is Joan of Arc. The cheese and her, but without her dying in the fire, we wouldn't have that cheese and somebody who invented that title. The same with Elvis Presley. It's a figurine, it's a plaster figurine, probably made by a child, that is like we still recognize, probably because of the hair or something like that, but it's about to be recognizable. Or the Che Guevara that becomes the adornment. So
and at the same time, the representation of Joan of Arc, Juana de Arco, in a piece of brie is kind of an identifier that leads you to everything that's French, and something about the French history that is heroic, and therefore we have to buy it and taste it, because we might get a little slice of that. But then the figurine of Elvis, looking at that, like, What is this?
Yeah, it's interesting. Going back to the cheese, also, if we think that you can make fondue, it makes it a little more sinister, the whole relationship between.
Yeah, the relationship, and it becomes a quiz of some sort, like what's Jay doing with Elvis and with that cheese?
Well, they are doing like, that's exactly the way reality, things are not in order. The order of things is really a mix of different things that happen together and different perceptions and reading. So I think that what is really not true is when we really order things by color, by stylish, by whatever, because it's not like that in reality. It's more like what we are seeing now in the background.
I wonder what you dream at night.
I dream. I have good dreams. This is.
Oh my! Here's a scenario that promises disaster, which is another topic in your work. The imminent disaster that can happen. Like now they're all being buried by this wave of cream-colored goo, whatever that is.
Yeah,
how big is this piece?
Like a meter, I don't know, like this. Like more or less.
Like,
because the objects are like the real size, and these are a group of objects that are all like, like a chaotic way, but then is printed on this, has like plastic on top, and so on top of it I painted those. There is like acrylic or other objects that are pasted to it. The chaos continues in our space, so it's a mixture of the virtual space and our space.
Yeah, and then also throughout the work, there's a sense of poetry going on, which at times is very prominent and at times is very sort of in the background, sort of, like here you can write a poem about all of this. I mean, what's Mickey doing next to that, ¿cómo se llama? What's the name of that, that glass with the mate, the tea, the mate tea?
Mate is the mate with the che. Then is the small figurine is the son of Kennedy, John, making the gesture like this.
Ah, it's John.
And then
okay.
The Benito Juárez, no? And then is the Brahms, I think, the musician, and then is Mao with two children, and
and Napoleon, no?
Yeah, and then is ¿cómo se llama? Napoleon. I mean, it's totally a crazy mixture of the similar objects from similar times, but they have together, I think, the impersonation of themselves and how they become objects that we recognize, and we know that so much history behind them, but now they are these sorts of adornments, or thoughts.
I know. It's kind of like a lecture in history gone berserk. It's like, what are they doing together? They're like from different eras and different moments and different instances of patriotism or nationalism or revolution. And so there's a dialogue there, but we're creating it as viewers.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the side to have the possibility of, even if people who don't agree are from different times or speak a different language. And here we see,
this is one of the pieces I like personally. I really like. I think it was shown also at your retrospective in El Museo del Barrio, which was when, in 2016?
I think so.
15?
Yeah, 16, I think. Eh,
El hombre del hacha.
the one we are seeing now, the man with the axe, was actually in Venice, in the Biennale of Venice, because I did this man with the axe in different places, but the idea was like you see in the first piece, a small man with the axe that is about 5 centimeters high, and then he starts breaking things, a lot of things, and it arrives at a piano, a real piano upside down. But if you go closer and see the narrative, there are a lot of mini narratives that happen in the meantime. Maybe there is a little figurine that is sweeping, somebody painting or fixing, or a lot of things and sub-narratives that happen in the middle of all that chaos. And I think it's a metaphor of time. You know, that time passes,
Yeah.
all these traces, but still is in our memory. Nothing totally the same.
But I mean, literally, I mean, one could consider it a piece of, fitting in the movement of destruction art. But at the same time, even though the pieces are all destroyed by El Hombre del Hacha, you constructed something. So it's like you're destructing and constructing all at once.
Yeah.
And that juxtaposition is just so incongruent. You can't imagine an artist destroying her little figurines and everything to create a piece that supposedly this other little man has destroyed. But at the same time, she's constructing this wonderful installation piece. Because it is kind of like an installation piece, isn't it?
It's an installation, yes. It's a big installation.
Yeah.
And
I never saw this piece at the Biennale. Which Biennale was this in Venice? Which year?
In Venice, 1917. Yeah, and then it was acquired by Perez Museum in Miami. So I installed it there in the museum again. And, every time you install it, it's a different configuration of the space. But the idea is the same, ends up in this piano upside down. Yeah. And I think it's because when you see it's a distraction, but it's not a depressing distraction. It's more like saying coming to terms with reality, that we know that time passes, that appear, that people go away, and all these things are happening, and at the same time they are in our memory, and you can really reconstruct it in a way or come to terms with it in a more healing way, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, healing, because how often, myself included, doesn't one feel like, just throwing all the dishes out and just like, a la mierda con todo, no? Just throwing it all out and destroying it and then moving on. But it's not that easy.
Yeah, but I think that life, reality is a challenge. Because we were like put in this world without a book of instructions. So it's a challenge that we have to recreate the reality and come to terms with whatever conditions we suddenly arrive to this world with. And I think you end up being happy or being healthy is like you won that challenge. So I think that I
guess it also references the saying, and you pick up the pieces, in life afterwards. You just pick up the pieces. Now we're looking at this image, which is one of those impossible tasks. I mean, this poor woman, it's like her size compared to the size of what she has to clean is just not possible. Yeah. And who's going to pay for all that labor anyway? It's like, all right, here's some ketchup, go clean it up.
What's moving is that she's doing it very, like this, and look to be desperate into her destiny of accomplishing that Ah,
Pobre. I feel for her. Oh, I love this piece. It's like such a hopeful one. Like this little man is hoping by watering these fake flowers that maybe they'll come alive.
no,
I mean, it's like wishful thinking, man.
totally, because he's not even aware that he's a bronze figurine and that maybe the, you know,
He's not aware, huh?
no, but it's still, and all the flowers are not real, but he's watering the flowers. It's true, it's super hopeful, this one.
Yeah. Oh, this one. Oh, God.
This is a detail on this. It's a huge paint that is gray, dark gray, made with black.
Yeah, it's about what, like 3 meters long, no?
The paint,
The width.
yes, and
Yeah.
the figurine is like very, very small, but he has a lamp in his hand, and it's
And the poor little guy has, he's like looking for something, but you're wondering why doesn't he look for a way out instead of illuminating this big gray void? You know, it's like standing in front of this void and not being able to get out of there. Pobre.
well,
I feel so sorry for him.
maybe he will get out now that he has a light.
Maybe he doesn't know he has a light. Maybe he doesn't know who he is. Maybe he doesn't know where he is. But it's a very intriguing piece, you know. It's like a memento mori or something.
Yeah. We have to see it close because there are two little men drawing on this big canvas. And so
I can't distinguish what this one is.
it's very difficult.
Can you describe it?
They are two little figurines that are drawing, and they are drawing this
Oh yeah, now I see. Okay.
garabato.
Yeah. Scribbling.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. Well, they should get together and scribble closer together. Maybe.
They are trying to art.
Aha, they don't know that each one exists.
No, but they are doing art and ended up in a painting. They don't know they are inside a painting.
Looks like a spider web what they're creating. I'm not sure. You have another one about, all these strings and these drawings along a very huge painting as well. Maybe it's coming up soon. Here's another disaster painting.
Well, I'm curious of these things happen in the sea, Untitled at Sea, Untitled at C1, Untitled at C2. And here has a horizontal canvas that has a shelf along the bottom. And like,
I know, and for the audience, these little figurines or objects are actually sitting on a little shelf.
yeah.
And some of them are attached to the paintings, but some of them are on a separate little shelf in front.
Yeah.
For those in the audience that haven't seen the real thing. Oh yeah, here's that guy. I mean,
This is the guy to untangle all those plastic, and then the rope. Again, the detail horizontal paint that has all the strings and everything, and the strings continue as drawing and in the complete photo.
you wonder why he hasn't strangled himself.
Yeah, he's
also
tangled. Okay, this is still there. You see this?
Oh, if we can go back to that image for a second.
That's
I mean, when you see the whole image of the drawing part and then the real strings where he's sitting.
Right.
Oh, can we go back to that painting?
Mm-hmm.
Here, it almost, it's sort of I don't know, it admits you to like a Cy Twombly, I was saying to you the other day. You know, his very metaphysical paintings about the Mediterranean legends, Ulysses, etc., which are really enigmatic as well. I mean, they're just a bunch of, if you think about it,
Yeah.
in real life, they're really just a bunch of lines. I mean, he reads into it, Ulysses and whatever. And this little man is just completely unconscious of the fact that maybe he's a great artist.
Maybe he has an influence humbly and doesn't know.
Maybe he has a huge future. Instead, he's just unraveling the twine, you know. It's like, and the next image was, I can't remember.
Well, that was
This,
thing, because I think for me it's very important that the man is in that tiny space and all the rest is empty, and you really have to arrive to it. So it's like the emptiness is like the substance of time almost, no? That, and I think that for me it's very important that he's not, the main part of the huge space.
I mean, most of us know that you have a fantastic studio in a barn upstate. When the pandemic, what were you doing during the pandemic? Because so many artists found like alternative sources of inspiration or completely changed their work around.
Well, we did with Anna Cornea, we did the work that was the video that was made with the group that we have in Argentina, that we made theater pieces. And it was interesting because we told everyone what to do, and they filmed with their own telephone, each one in their house, because we have no house. Then we, with the Colombianos, ¿cómo se llama? Put it together. The video, but that was the first. But also I continued work, lot of drawing. Then at one point, studio, was the moment. Yeah.
There's something odd with the sound right now. Can you hear me, Liliana?
Yes. And you?
And your voice on my end is kind of cracked up, like crackles,
Really?
like fragments. Yeah.
And now?
We're looking at a pink little bird who's in dialogue with who's he dialoguing with?
The painting, is a glass, glass bird, terracotta, beautiful little sculpture.
Is that sound problem on the end of American society? Because my phone is very loud.
Really?
Liliana's voice comes through all cracked up. Don't know what to do.
A ver. Somebody else, the people listening, they should say if they hear everything okay. Like,
Now I'm hearing you fine.
yes? Okay.
Yeah, and you can hear me good?
Very well.
Okay, good. So you were saying that pink little bird is having a dialogue with whom again?
With a Chinese terracotta figurine. Yeah.
Why a Chinese?
Well, he found the bird, and also I think they have this very poetic conversation, and it looks like they really get along very well.
Aha! Now I'm getting the clue. This Chinese figurine is definitely inspired by.
It looks like a monk.
Definitely not inspired by Mao, but by.
No, it's before. It's like a monk or something, or maybe a character of some tale for children. No?
Yeah, or maybe some Buddhist aspect is there.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, meditative, like it sounds like there's some sort of dialogue going on that has to do with peace.
Yeah, and he said, like, again, this is a very long painting and has all this gray space around, and that's the only thing that happened is that dialogue.
I like the fact that you talk about your work and describe it as situations.
Yes. Yeah, they are
Can you?
situations. Well, that's a great word, no? Because it really, this is like it has a lot of possibilities, no? A situation. It has, no, emotional possibilities, physical, formal possibilities, and I like that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily static.
No, right.
It's sort of expansive. And it situates the viewer as well.
Yeah, and also
Like
it's something that could pass, no? It's like a moment, let's say.
It can be a flash or it can be lasting, especially when they are in these huge spaces, no?
Right.
You can imagine how that conversation continued to evolve between the little Chinese figurine and the bird.
Yes.
So maybe there's a sequel to it. I don't know. Maybe there's another piece that will come later.
It could.
Let's roll on to the next image, please.
Well, here you see the whole thing is so small, the figurines, that you don't even see it on the bottom, but you can imagine the amount of space around.
Now you got to walk straight up to the canvas to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Next one, please.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I love this one.
This is a close-up also, but it's a series I did that are called for sale and are like objects attached to canvas and with a price tag. And to me, they are like very sad somehow because they are toys. They are very small, no? But somehow I think if you put them for sale, is that somebody doesn't want them anymore, or they are already not useful, or it implies some kind of detachment that I find it sort of sad and like a strong metaphor that way.
Yeah, it's sort of a mixture of nostalgia and melancholy, no?
Yeah.
I mean, that was maybe it was your grandmother's trunk and all of a sudden it's on the street and people can just take it. Or in a secondhand shop with a label attached to it that it gives an X price, but it doesn't really tell what its real value is.
Right.
It's
You
just
don't know.
a monetary number that you can acquire that piece for so much, but in effect it has a whole other dimension of value that is intrinsic to who the piece belonged to. And that little chair, I mean, I've never seen a real chair like that. The backing of it must be very uncomfortable, no? I don't know.
It looks like a Tonet chair, no? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It looks sort of Viennese or something. Like it should be at the Neue Galerie and Park Avenue on Fifth Avenue or someplace like that. How could you find a miniature like that? I mean, can you imagine making a miniature like that?
Yeah,
that takes a lot of time.
I find
that's a lot of labor. How big is that thing? How big is that little chair? Like 3 centimeters?
No, a little more, like maybe 5. Yeah. I think it's for people who do those houses with chairs for children, I think, or collectors. Yeah.
Definitely for a collector. It's more a chair to look at than to sit on.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's for sale, ladies and gentlemen. You can make a bid.
There you can see the painting.
in its entirety. I like the fact that this canvas sits on top of a wood frame, I guess that is.
The canvas, no, it's a normal canvas, a square canvas is on the wall, the photograph, I think.
But it looks as though it's on top of the frame instead of the frame around it.
No, it doesn't
Second
have
sort
a
of.
frame. The frame is
Ah,
what you see around is the wall.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Got you.
yes.
And then the next one is
The next one is a drawing, is a work on paper. I mean, the space is bigger than what you are seeing, but it's a plastic hand of Mickey Mouse that is painted black, and then the drawing like copying that is a copy. It's called, I think, the copy. And I always like the representation of the things, how things are translated in representation. And so, and also because that hand is something recognizable, no?
yeah,
And so it's part of
and
the,
it talks to the authorship and the copy.
yeah, and
It
also
talks to the
it's in the memory, the general memory, like it's a recognizable thing.
you play a lot. You play a lot with that idea of copy and real, the real thing and the copy of the real thing.
Yeah, because the more you do that, you realize that everything is representation, that there is the archetype doesn't exist or we cannot reach it.
Yeah, or we can't even go back to what it was originally.
Mm-hmm.
And here, this is the again the hand in the drawing.
Yeah,
of the
it's a
hand.
whole paper like there. You can see the
Okay.
size. Yeah.
Yeah, some of these are. Well, you've also done a lot of. These are all originals, right? Only in the beginning did we see a couple of prints, right?
This is original, yeah. But I continue making prints, so I have a lot of prints. I continue making, I'm very interested in making graphic art. I work a lot, especially with Spanish editors like Polígrafa or La Caja Negra, that are great editors, no publishers.
Yeah, that's true. You've done a lot of graphics with.
Mhm.
I've seen them at art fairs, the Caja Negra and
Yeah,
Polígrafa.
they are great.
Going back to that printmaking, I remember that talking of the copy and the real thing, that you all created this hypothetical artist called Juan
Trepadori.
Trepadori.
Yes.
And already his last name is kind of really telling of what he does.
Yeah,
So-
was interesting because at the beginning, well, it was it's a long story, but anyway, at the end, it ended up being an artist that many other artists could make trepadori because we were selling editions to a publisher. And so let's say that somebody came to New York, a Latin American colleague that needed money. So they make a trepadori and we sell it to this publisher. So part of it went to, a group, and part went to the artist. So it was like they became a fellowship. And the trepadori aesthetic was a very commercial one, very sellable, and was pretty happy, but had no artistic challenge, let's say. But it was what the publisher wanted because it was what he sold more, and he never knew that it was an invented artist.
And it was sort of like mostly very tacky, very sort of decorative work, no?
Yeah, but what was interesting is when an artist, let's say, came and made the trepadores, which was a particular aesthetic that we could all follow, even if it was very decorative and everything, the artist was, I could see, enjoying that freedom of having the possibility of being decorative, not being intellectual, being free. There was something to be studied about the idea of freedom and how we sometimes,
and to be someone else,
yes, and to have the
which again
freedom.
talks about the copy and the real thing.
The freedom of being someone else is a fantastic subject. Yeah.
I wish we could practice it more often during the day, just to be someone else. I guess they have more images for us, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is
Oh, yeah, of course.
it's a fragment again of a drawing that is a traveler. Those lines that you see are the ways, no, where the traveler has to go. And I've made a whole series of travelers that are photographs, drawings, paintings, videos, and even in theater, I use the traveler because I like very much the idea of the traveler is also a metaphor of time, and has many possible poetic sides, no, to it.
And talking about your theatrical works done together with Ana Tiscornia,
Yes.
I remember when you first began doing these absurd films with your little figurines and so forth. And I invited you to show the first one that was in Arco at Blue Star.
Yeah.
What was it? The title of that film
was called For You, and was in Arco with Ruth Ben-Sakar. And I was showing with her, but I got a special space. It was such a happy moment for me because it was my first video, and it was it has a special space to show it and everything. So then I did a few more videos, and then the other new experience was the theater. That was really fantastic because it was the first time I worked with people, with real people, no, instead of objects. And it was I always tell something that was interesting, that I thought that working with people was going to be, had more content than working with inanimate objects. But the truth is that when I have the objects, I find the objects in the flea market, they come complete. I don't paint them or intervene or anything. They come with their own history and their own interiority. But when you work with actors, the actor is totally empty. He comes and tells you who I am, tell me what I do, who I am. They are nothing until you tell them what to do or who they are. So it was interesting to see that the inanimate objects were more complete and more finished than the people.
Yeah, I know. There's also your relationship to music that came into play. With the first films, and then the theater productions.
Yeah,
I think that was a very, very important aspect.
Very important.
Yeah.
The first, the video. I started with working with music with the video, and I was introduced with Silvia Meyer, who is a Uruguayan musician and composer. And it was the best experience, an incredible experience to work with her, but also how music really changes or gives a lot of, meaning to the objects and to the situations, and can change totally an object according to the music, change the situation, the mood, the meaning, everything. So we continue working together, and then even when we did the theater.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you continue to work together, because she created another dimension to the work.
Totally.
That was, it seemed almost symbiotic with your personality.
Yeah,
what you were trying to do.
It's true.
It was like amazing, like a marriage made in heaven. I remember when we showed the film in your very first film at Blue Star. the project space in the back. It was super successful. And Isaac Julian was having a fellowship at the residency at Art at that time. And he was like completely in love with your work. And then we all went to see his piece at his museum show at Bard College with Anna and you and me and I forget who else. And it was like so in your face different that it always surprised me that he was so in love with your work.
Interesting.
I wonder if I wonder if you've all continued to communicate or not. If not, I should put you in touch with one
Again,
another.
you are right. That would be nice. Yes.
Yeah. It seems that Natalia from the American Society has some additional questions. Maybe she should either ask the questions now or maybe occupy the space I'm occupying right now, this little space. I'm not sure how to do this. Natalia, are you there? Can you clarify what you would like to do?
Hi, Carla.
Ask the question.
Hi, Lily. How are you?
Hi.
Yes, I had a question about your experience in New York. And thinking about the exhibition that we have currently at American Society. Can you talk about your experience when arriving here?
To arrive when I arrived to New York in '64.
Yes.
Yeah, I came in '64. I was coming just for a week because I was on my way to Europe, and a friend of mine invited me to come to New York to see the World Fair because it was 1964. And when we arrived to New York, I was so surprised by the city and all the possibilities and the museums and everything that I decided to stay longer. I'm still here. And it was a fantastic moment to come because first, 64 was the year where New York was beginning of taking the place that Paris was until that moment. So a lot of artists from all over the world were coming to New York. And that was the time when the Beatles came to New York. Was an incredible moment to be young and to come to a city with so much energy. And just to see, I study art history like with slides, like with images and everything. And suddenly to come to the Metropolitan and see the original ones, go to the Museum of Modern Art, and it was like a feast. It was like too much to digest. And so I continue staying here, and then I'm still here.
And Liliana, you remember when we were going from loft to loft doing those meetings of the Museo with that group of Latin Americans?
Yes.
And then we ended up doing it in my space, the book itself. And you and I used to take trips to the Metropolitan and break out of the routine there.
Yeah.
And I remember that the information show was happening at the Modern. We went there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and the information was a super important show. And actually, we took the New York Graphic Workshop. We had a space. I mean, we did a work there with Kamnitzer and Castillo. And it was very moving, all those moments. Yeah.
I remember that Antonio Diaz was living around the corner on Grant.
Yes.
When we were printing Contrabienal, and we went even to because he was one of the 5 or 10 artists that were from Latin America that Kenneth McShine included. I mean, that show was really a pivotal moment of breakthrough in what museums were doing at that time.
It's true.
And it influenced us a lot.
Yes.
It even influenced me all the time when I was in Mexico doing the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
I saw him not that long ago at an opening of Doris Salcedo at the Guggenheim.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not in very good shape, but what a brilliant man.
Yes, yes, yes.
Brilliant show.
Yeah.
Actually, it was
Yeah.
first black curator at MoMA, I think.
You remember what year was information? No, I don't remember.
68, 69, the same time that we were doing La Contrabienal, the book.
Uh-huh.
And we would discuss it, you know, we'd like look at all the work that was included. And actually the looks of the book, the Contrabienal, have a lot in common. Mimeograph, that's the machine we use. We use the mimeograph. And it has a lot in common with the catalog of the information show, which I still have, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I bet
Yes.
you too, no?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so yeah, those were times, those were really interesting times, no? New York was still like very much a small community of artists.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well,
You could talk to each other. Today it's kind of like, well, I don't want to dwell on that. Moving on.
well, things change, but you know.
Natalia, do you have another question, Natalia?
No, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I wanted.
Are there any questions from the audience? Because I can't read.
Not really. Just comments.
Okay, that's good.
Me dice que linda Carla.
Qué linda charla.
¿Perdona?
Ah, charla. Qué linda. Bueno, pero qué linda Carla.
Ay, qué bueno. Bueno, entonces yo creo que ya nos faltan 3 minutos para las 5.
Para las 6.
Nos vamos despidiendo. ¿Hay alguna obra en particular con la que quieres despedirte, Lili?
No, las obras serán las del futuro. Esas mostraremos. Pero,
eso me gusta. Las otras son del futuro.
Muy lindo conversar contigo, la verdad que nos une una amistad de muchos años, así que es muy lindo poder compartir todos estos recuerdos.
No, y hemos convivido tantos momentos.
¿verdad?
Todavía yo tenía una pregunta escondida,
Sí.
pero no la hice y era todo el movimiento feminista que empezaba en Nueva York en esas épocas.
Sí.
Y que yo sí me uní a las Guerrilla Girls, no sé si tú también fuiste parte de ese grupo.
No, ojalá, porque las Guerrilla Girls son las más lúcidas, o sea, siempre me pareció un grupo súper lúcido, ¿no? Toda la idea de las Guerrilla Girls, muy además efectivo, ¿no? Didáctico, efectivo y con humor.
Impacto.
Y con
tuvieron
mucho humor.
muchísimo impacto.
Sí, la verdad que...
Además de super humor.
Es verdad.
Bueno, querida, ha sido un gusto. Ojalá y pudiéramos tener otra repetición y hablar del posible futuro.
Muy bien, ojalá.
En la siguiente charla.
Muy bien, gracias por todo.
Bye.
Chau.
Besos.
Besitos.
Besos a todos. Gracias. Bye.